Tattoo artists of Reddit. What's the worst tattoo you've ever given someone? Story 1. I also asked my artist this question while I was in the chair. His story is actually kind of sad. He was working in a shop somewhere down south, and they used to have this Eastern European sounding guy come in a lot with a string of beautiful Asian girls. The girls would get the same tattoos he had. They stopped serving him after this happened a few times. The first time they assumed it was a couple tattoo, second time that he has poor judgment, but after that it started to look a lot like a human trafficker marking his property. He said one of the girls didn't even know the tattoo was permanent. He probably regrets tattooing some of those girls. Story 2. Asked my artist this. He told me that years ago some stripper came in looking to have vines and roses tattooed on that would come out of her butthole and curl up her back. He asks why not just get the roses on her back and butt, but she insists it must come out of her anus. He reluctantly does the tattoo for a high price and said it looked pretty good too, but curiosity got the better of him after a while, and he asks why she insists on having it come out of her butthole. Her response was both the strangest and smartest reasoning I could have heard for such a tattoo. She would dance and she figured the guys would ask, hey, how far does that tat go, to which she could say for $10 he'll show you. So the dudes pay up a 10 spot. She shows her real fast and done deal. She's richer and they looked at and my tattoo artist is not proud of that job. Story 3. I did a cover-up that I wasn't proud of, but that's what the client wanted. A couple came into the shop asking for a cover-up of an ex. She showed me and surely enough, a big guy's name on her side hip. The good part was it was done in a light blue ink, easy to cover. I already started getting ideas in my head of what to cover it with. Guy steps in and says, no, we just want a star over it. The name was about 5 to 6 inches long and I explained that a star that big would have to be, at least, 8 inches big to fully cover the name. Both said yes to this. My boss walks over and gets on my for not suggesting something else, but I explained to him that that's what they wanted. Both looked at him and nodded. By the time it was done, this small petite girl had a blue star covering her entire hip area. It looked cheap, tacky, ghetto mad, just stupid. After that, I refuse to do cover-ups if the client doesn't listen to reason. Story 4. Buddy of mine in the army got a rooster hanging from a noose tattooed on his calf, so he could say he had that hung below his knee. First-year military tattoos are no joke. Story 5. When I got my second tattoo in Boston at Regeneration Records, a man came in and asked the artist if she would tattoo a portrait of himself on his back, holding 2 desert eagles, with a banner saying watch yo back. I really hope he came back and got it, he seemed so enthused. Story 6. I knew a guy in high school who got drunk, and went out on his 18th birthday and got a tattoo of a mean-looking grizzly bear on his bicep. Whoever did the tat must have been drunker than he was, because it looked like a character from South Park. It was cartoonishly bad. Story 7. My tattoo artist told me that another guy in their shop had recently tattooed boxing gloves on a woman's vagina in her 50s. It was for her husband's birthday and she said it was so he could beat her up. Story 8. Disclaimer: not a tattoo artist. Late evening and I'm in a tattoo shop getting my first tattoo. About 15 minutes into it some guy drives up to the shop with alarming speed and I swear he stopped his car with his e-brake. He barges into the store and demands he have a black bar inked onto his chest. He pulls his shirt down and Rebecca is written. My artist replies, we don't do black bars here, and the guy furiously exited the building. I'll let it. Disclaimer. Story 9. 2 stories. I was in the beginning of my career and had only been at it for about 4 years, was making a name for myself doing black and gray portraits in my hometown. One day a client came in for me. She had her husband and child with her, wanting a quote on some ink. Their child was only about a month or 2 old and they wanted to get the child's footprints with a banner that included the date of birth. No big deal, pretty standard, done these a few times before. Then, I get hit with a twist. It needs another banner underneath it with nothing in it. Confused, I asked why. They told me the child was terminally ill and would die soon. My jaw dropped. I had a long conversation with the ups and downs of this decision and tried to talk them out of it. Eventually, they convinced me that it was not just so spur-of-the-moment thing and I did the tattoo. About 6 months went by and I had put it out of head when they came back and wanted me to finally finish it. I felt so terrible that I couldn't bring myself to do it. I had my buddy do it instead. Second story. 4 kids in their early 20s came in. One of them lost a bet. He had to get a tattoo and he had to let the tattoo shop's artists pick it. Being the lot of wise area we are, I shouted unicorn with a for a horn and my coworkers yelled taco. His friends laughed and he was blown away and just beside himself. His friends and him agreed to let him pick 4 of his own choices and put a number from 1 to 6 on all of the ideas, then roll a die. Well, we had one of our best artists do an amazing unicorn with a horn on him. I'm just glad people still hold up to their end of a bet. There are many more, but those are just the ones that always pop in my head. Story 10. A guy I know has a tattoo of Roman numerals with his date of birth running down his forearm. The problem is, he wasn't old enough to get one at the time, so lied on the form he had to fill out, and as a result, he now has a tattoo with the wrong date of birth on his arm. Story 11. Cousin of mine got a tattoo on his ankle of Jabba the Hutt, with a handful of dollars and a speech bubble that says dance. Story 12. I asked the tattoo artist this question while I had mine done. Someone he worked with got an estimate request for a vagina to be tattooed onto his taint. She gave him an estimate thinking he'd think it too high and moved on. Turned out the other places he went to first quoted him higher, so he accepted. The guy I was talking to said he'd walk by her cubicle and see her bent over with the guy's legs up, and she said she was fine the first hour or so until she took her first break, then it was torture for her to finish. Story 13. Not a tattoo artist, but a friend has a noughts and crosses game tattooed on his leg. However, the resulting combination of XS and OS is impossible. I give him for it every time he wears shorts. There are 3 XS which are forming a winning diagonal line, and 4 OS scattered elsewhere. The game should have ended at the third X, meaning there is no way a fourth O should have been played. Edit tic-tac-toe for those players from the US. Story 14. I don't have a tattoo I regret doing, but I have a tattoo I regret needed to be done. One evening a dude came into the shop with his tiny Asian wife saying he wanted a female artist to cover a scar on her abdomen with a rose. She didn't speak any English and never once made eye contact, so I immediately assumed she was just a meek, submissive sort of chick going along with her authoritative white husband. An encounter with another couple in the past made me apprehensive about this sort of situation. She seemed like she wasn't sure if she should get the tattoo, and started out being a huge pain in the, when we finally agreed on a design, though she made me place the stencil over and over while remaking the stencil for the 20th time. I remember joking with the piercer that he bought this broad off the internet for sure. I joked he was able to her scar covered using the money he saved buying out of the scratch and dent section of the mail order bride catalog. During the procedure, this chick showed no emotion or sign of discomfort at all. I sat, impressed by her restraint, while her husband told me they met while he was teaching English as a second language over in Korea, I think. He went on to say that she was part of a fishing village where the women would learn to hold their breath for several minutes at a time waiting underwater for fish to swim by and throw them up onto the beach. I practiced holding my own breath and only made it 20 seconds before I was forced to re-evaluate this chick. I was impressed. And I said so. He confirmed it is indeed awesome to grow up in such a village until a bunch of soldiers decide to drop by to rape and pillage. It stops being awesome when you see your friends and family die and all your food stolen, which is exactly what happened to her. She survived, but gave birth to a son 9 months later. She also survived the next time the soldiers came through, but ended up pregnant a second time. He said if you lived where she is from, you would be allowed to have only one child. If you ended up pregnant again, you would be forced to undergo a hysterectomy, or go to prison. At that time I had one child, and was considering a second, which meant I didn't think straight for months after that tattoo. I don't regret the tattoo, but I do regret my stupid comments. It was a humbling reality check. That was 8 years ago, but I still keep a photo of that rose next to my station. Story 15. I'm coming into this thread real late, but I'm a tattooer, and I have 2 that come to mind. The first one was fuck love across a Hispanic guy's knuckles. I guess he had just broken up with his girl, and was really heated. Tried to talk him out of it, said his mind was made up. Figure he might as well spend his money with me, and get it done nice. Gave him what he wanted and sent him home. The other one was on a biker girl that got property of guy's name on her lower back. Talking huge though, literally half her back, same deal as the last one. Might as well get it done right and might as well be the one that makes the money. Apparently her and the guy had only been dating for 2 months, and she had just had a baby with another guy. Even asked her when the guy went outside to smoke if she was sure, and that she could back out if she wanted to, and made sure she wasn't getting pressured into it. She was just genuinely down as for the guy. Absolutely stoked to get that tattoo. Hope they're still together cause there's no way in that giant tattoo is getting covered. Story 16. My aunt's a tattoo artist who is lucky enough to be able to turn away basically any tattoo ideas she doesn't care for. Apparently one guy wanted to have tattooed onto his middle fingers. If the pun wasn't bad enough, his girlfriend then called up my aunt the next day to accuse her of sleeping with her boyfriend. Lovely people, I'm sure.
Story 17. Professionnel, artiste 10 heures expire.
I don't want to go into too much detail because thinking about that week was hard, but a very close friend of mine passed away and was cremated, and her sister had some of her ash mixed into the ink for a memorial tattoo. It's an incredibly small amount. Entirely safe and will not affect the healing process. I can't really tell you the feeling of handling that task or the ashes themselves, knowing they were a part of someone who I could physically hug just a few days before it wasn't an easy process. Story 18. The worst tattoo that I wasn't given was denied to me by an artist who said I was too drunk. I owe that man or woman everything. It would have been a name tag on my chest that said hello, my name is. Story 19. My friend has a dream catcher on his leg, I think calf I forget, but instead of feathers hanging it's dildos. Edit. Here is a picture of my buddy's leg. Hope you all love the dream catcher as much as he does. It's decently well done but just not my kind of thing. Double edit. He has some other weird and kind of out of taste tattoos as well. All are comical but not as outlandish as the dream catcher. I can post if anyone wants to see him. Story 20. This person got a tattoo of Hitler holding a gas bill on one of those bad tattoos TV shows. Story 21. My friend just got a tattoo done and he asked his artist the same question. He said that once a huge black guy came in and wanted to get a tattoo of a ruler that was accurate on his forearm leading to his fist. The guy later explained that he was gay and he wanted to know exactly how deep he goes into the anus of another man when he fists them. Edit. So sorry, I do not know if the big black guy ever came back. My friend that got the tattoo never asked. If he goes back I'll make sure he asks the artist. P.S. If you like this, check out my retard's harmonica comment. Story 22. I became friends with the guys at a local shop who did a couple of mine. We had the same conversation, and the worst they had done was a sexy chick who insisted on having maggots tattooed coming out of her. They said they did it and that her wasn't gross or anything. Story 23. One of my friends made the shameful decision of getting a tattoo of a lipstick kiss on his neck. Not any particular person either, just a random kiss. Story 24 Not an artist. But one of my friends asked for love, laugh and live in Chinese script. It took a few days before someone pointed out to her that she actually had please choose one of the tattoos below in Chinese script on her right arm. Story 25 Guy I knew in high school really liked to draw. There's a huge difference between liking to draw and drawing well. If I had to describe his art style, it'd be something comparable to Napoleon Dynamite. He also had a friend who owned a tattoo gun he liked to borrow. This resulted in several terrible tattoos. The worst might have to be when he tattooed the girl of his dreams onto his right forearm. Needless to say, she had a face only a mother could love. He was that mother. Story 26 For my friend's tattoo artist. A couple comes in, sober as a judge. They've been dating 2, maybe 4 weeks, and they want each other's names tattooed on their anuses. Ring around their anuses with the other person's name. Girls, thing won't stop twitching while I'm doing it. I don't know what to do. Guy says put your thumb in there. That's what I always do. God help me, I did 500 for 10 minutes work. Story 27 I saw a mugshot on the news a few years ago of a guy with you tattooed across his forehead. Definitely a conversation starter. The Sons of Anarchy logo. Kid had the SOA jacket and matching ball cap. Didn't even ride. Insisted on having the logo tattooed on his back. I just looked at him. Okay, I hated that show. I found this on Reddit a long while back. It's pretty good, but at the same time, this is something she will strongly regret later in life. Thanks Reddit NSFW. Story 28 I wouldn't say worst. I've got a few ones in my first year, but the one I felt like for asking the guy to pay is for a different reason altogether. I do custom script. There's this couple that comes in, trashy tattoos etc. She tells me that he's going away to prison in a few weeks and he wants to get her name and she'll get his name right after. I insist this isn't the best idea. Try to convince them otherwise. They don't listen. So I do it because rent doesn't pay itself and I got bad habits to maintain. He goes first. After getting her name tattooed across his stomach, she spits in his face. Says now you understand how shitty it felt when you slept with insert name here. You thought I'd never find out you piece of, and then stormed out the shop, never getting hers. Now I'm not a 100 sure here because I'm not very good with these things, but I think they had problems, cough. Story 29 Once an incredibly intoxicated man came in with his friends and oh so subtly asked for a star around his anus. He then proceeded to whisper, don't worry, I shaved. I kicked him out. Edit anus. Okay, so I'm not a tattoo artist, but my cousin has had a bad experience with getting a tattoo whilst drunk. His friends offered to pay for any tattoo they wanted to put on him and give him 500 while they were still drunk from drinking that night, so he agreed since being drunk and woke up to his whole back being tattooed with a Pillsbury Doughboy on a cross crucified. He later got it covered up with tree leaves and a heart in place of the Doughboy with text over it, but I forget what it says. No, I don't have a picture of it, but I'm sure he has one of it hidden somewhere. Story 30 This is so fortuitous that tattoos are on front page because I was just at Hurricane Harbor last Saturday, and I saw a tattoo of 2 unicorns under a rainbow on the back of someone's neck, and I have been dying to talk about it. Story 31 Not an artist here, but a buddy of mine was in China and got a tattoo in Chinese lettering saying horsecock. He specifically asked the artist for the closest thing in Chinese to as opposed to just penis for extra vulgarity. The tattoo artist thought this was great because he himself has a tattoo of a wizard with a for a head. Story 32 My friend got a foie gras tattoo. Our original idea was to get foie gras tattoo across his chest in stylized letters. He is a cook that absolutely loves the stuff, but we didn't think he was serious. Turns up a couple days later with a new tattoo. The original one was too much money, so he got a sort of badge on his arm. It is a circle with a goose in the middle craning its head back and up into the air with a funnel forced down its throat. Words around it say in foie gras we trust. Edit it is from Le Pigeon in Portland. Exact same design as the bottom t-shirt here. More detailed story from below. After I just texted my friend the bottom one is the tattoo. He actually interned at that place and we were eating dinner at the sister restaurant Little on his birthday when I came up with the idea of him getting a foie gras tattoo. We were actually discussing the tattoo with Gabriel Rucker, the owner head chef, when he gave my friend an autographed copy of his cookbook for his birthday. I just texted my friend and he said that when the chest one was too much, he went with that one that he found in the cookbook, tattoo artist here. So this one time, I had only been an apprentice for about a year or so, this really old lady came in, looked through loads of flash. She seen this one image of a little red devil, a little penguin from behind. It was in the books cause my boss found it hilarious but no one ever wanted it, which is understandable, so she wanted that. I said no way. This went on for a while. I knew I wasn't getting rid of this OAP, so I just told her I was busy for the next 6 weeks. Well, sure enough, one day each week she would come in, find the design and ask if I was still too busy. This one day she came in, she started telling me how it's on her bucket list to get a tattoo that makes people smile, and how she was lucky to have 6 months left to live. Well me, that's one way to kill a buzz. Who am I to judge people and cherry pick? I done the little tattoo for her one night, felt weird, didn't want to be taking the out of anyone or take advantage, but she wanted it. Old lady gave me a 20 tip, never seen her again. Another story for the of it. I tattooed in Ibiza, Spain in 2008. A guy wanted his wife's initials tattooed on his chest. After I done the 3 initials he kept laughing. I asked what was up. He said you'd never have done that if I told you it stood for do not resuscitate. My heart stopped. No pun intended. Story 33 Whoever the gave that clown on America's Got Talent. You, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, asked for a 13, and I drew a 31. Story 34 Not an artist, but worked the counter at a shop for a little while. a dragon and a unicorn spooning. Dragon was big spoon. They were floating on a cloud. It was a sizable shoulder piece. Story 35, maybe not worst necessarily, but weirdest was once during my apprenticeship a guy wanted Wrangler pockets on his but cheeks. Nobody else in the shop wanted to do it, so they gave it to me for practice, so I end up spending hours doing detailed pockets on this guy with the Wrangler patch on one cheek and the skull ring on the other. He seemed to like it though. Story 36, guy who recently became an officer in the army had a tattoo on his rib stomach of a unicorn with magic shooting out of its horn, rainbow-colored magic, and then wheat coming out of the back, wheat, like what you make bread out of. Story 37, I once seen on the TV show Tattoo Fixers UK a guy who got bring back fingering tattooed on him. Whatever floats your boat, I say. Edit saw not seen. I am stupid people of Reddit. Story 38, there was this flash at my best friend's first shop, and I made her promise if anyone got it, she would call me immediately so I could watch. It was this jovial sunburned Jesus, who was laughing uproariously, eyes rolled up to God. I wish it was ironic, but no, fully in earnest, Jesus Christ laughing. It was in the style of like early Hanna-Barbera animation. Singularly worst piece of flash I have ever seen. Came here hoping for laughing Christ, leaving disappointed. Story 39, not a tattoo artist, but have a mate that is one of the better tattooists in the city where I live. One day he had a woman come in and ask for a full back tattoo of musical notes. My mate had asked her what music she wanted tattooed and she said she didn't care. So yeah, I get this call from him asking if I could help him find sheet music to a particular song. She ended up with Star Wars, the Imperial March tattooed on her back, and to this day I doubt she knows what song it is. Story 40, not an artist, but saw a girl with a large heart-shaped Confederate flag on her lower back with a banner behind it. Left side of banner bad initials in it, right side had dates. Above the whole thing it read Daddy's Girl. Fortunately I get to see this girl every day in the mirror. She's me. WTF was I thinking? Edited with link to picture. Story 41, not a tattoo artist, but a family friend had a bear with deer antlers tatted on his palm, so that, in his words, he would always have a beer in his hand. Story 42, every time some white chick comes in asking me to tattoo an anchor on the back of their leg, they also always want some like I won't be held down on some parchment banner under it too. That's what an anchor is supposed to do, not a tattoo artist. But I don't understand people who tattoo their names on themselves. Story 43, not a tattoo artist, but my sister has a massive color tattoo of scene from The Lion King where the baby lion is being held up over Pride Rock, thigh to above belly button height, yeah. Story 44, I was getting my tattoo done when this happened. This really big circumference not height woman who had poor hygiene walked in. Not being one to shy away from a customer, James introduced himself and asked her what she was looking to get. She wanted a hummingbird on her thigh. When he asked where, she winked. His face turned 2 shades of white. A few moments go by and they go in the booth across from where I am. I nod at her and she smiles. She props her leg up on the table and James reluctantly starts laying the stencil down. She says not there, higher. James must have been moving it millimeters at a time because she said higher 3 different times before she said right there. Just as James is firing up the tattoo gun, she says no sweetie. Put the beak towards the flower so it can get all the nectar. James excused himself and went outside. The guy doing my tattoo had to stop because he was laughing and didn't want to mess anything up. When I went back in to get my color done, I asked James how the hummingbird lady went, and he said he had to wear a surgical mask because the smell was so bad. Story 45, blah blah, not a tattoo artist, but recently one of my friends got a tattoo done by an aspiring tattoo artist. My friend, who was only 15 at the time, is a very earthy hippie chick, so naturally she got a tattoo that's supposed to be a symbol for the earth, with the word earth written under it. Well, it was a symbol for earth. Except it was the Avatar, the last airbender earth symbol. And she didn't know until after she got it tattooed on her arm. Story 46, this didn't happen to me, but to a very close friend of mine. This guy makes a very urgent appointment for Thursday. It was a Monday, he didn't think too much of it, it's Thursday, and the guy shows up at his house, and he puts down a portrait of this girl, that he wants across half of his chest. It's pretty massive. It was his girlfriend, and my friend doesn't really like doing names of faces of significant others, because a lot of them tend to break up, and then he normally has to do a cover-up, so he spends a good 45 minutes making sure this guy really wants the tattoo, because like I mentioned it's pretty big, so it would be a task to cover up. He's about an hour into the tattoo, when his client starts getting a little chatty, so he starts talking back, when literally out of nowhere, he asks a question no tattoo artist ever wants to hear. So when I needed it to be removed, could you explain the procedure please? Instantly he puts his machine down, because he definitely mentioned it was permanent a few times. It just so happens that the client didn't know permanent meant forever. He thought after a while it would just sort of fade away apparently. It was pretty early on in the tattoo, and only the eyes and the side of her hair had been done. So he asks the client if he should change it into something abstract right now, because later it would be much harder. The guy laughs and says, well now that it started, it would be silly to not continue. My friend is super skeptical about continuing, but after some negotiating he continues. A little while later, he asks his client how long they had been together. This is right around where things really spiral. Turns out, they had dated for 3 months, and broke up a month ago. My friend is absolutely flabbergasted, and doesn't know if he should continue or not, but about 3/4 of the tattoo is done by this point. The man explains that this was going to be his way of winning her back from her new boyfriend, who was going to be having a party this Saturday, and that's why he needed the appointment to be before that. He could appreciate the romantic gesture, even if he thought it was strange, so he asks the client how he was sure she was the one for him. The man laughs it off and says, no, I can't marry her, she's a Christian, and I'm a Muslim, my parents won't be okay with that, and so I was thinking when I had to get married, I'd come back to you and you could cover the tattoo up, make it entirely black, but the eyes, I want it to look like a hijab. This was a 12-inch tattoo to clarify, which this man wanted covered predominantly black, except the eyes. The tattoo was pretty much done at this point, so he just touched it up and sent him on his way, very taken aback and not sure what to do. Story 47. A small kid named Calvin came with his father, getting a tattoo of a potato on his left ankle. He originally wanted something better, but his father disagreed with a strange metaphor of having two noses. The potato was the worst tattoo. Story 48. Not an artist, but the worst eBay scene is, my future roommate got a free tattoo done by an aspiring tattoo artist. It looked like the swirly lines you draw on the corner of a notebook when you're bored. It's right below her chest, between her. Story 49. When I lived in China, I knew a white guy who got spicy rice noodles in Chinese tattooed on his inner thigh. He spoke, read, and wrote fluent Mandarin. He was drunk and wanted to get the thing he loved the most in the world tattooed on his body. Story 50. I know a guy who has 2 weird tattoos, or 3 actually. He got his shoe size tattooed on his feet, for if he ever takes off his socks while shoe shopping, I guess, that's technically 2 tattoos, huh? He also had like 10 different tattoos, well executed ones with good ideas, mostly, but no common theme on one arm, and wanted to turn it into a full sleeve. So he told the tattoo artist fill in the gaps with pink. He has a pink arm now. He's weird, of a pool billiards player though, not a tat artist, but Gucci Mane's ice cream cone tattoo. Story 51. I knew a guy in school who was training to be a tattoo artist. He got really drunk one night and drunkenly tattooed crooked lines and stick figures and like that all the way down both of his legs. The idiot was laughing about it the next day in art class and showing off his new tats. WTF. Story 52. I was a piercer at a tattoo shop and also spent a lot of time getting tattooed there. We had a great artist, the owner, with an art degree and everything, and one who did pretty decent tattoos but wasn't the most educated dude. Well, his client came out of the booth super happy and excited and showed me his new tattoo. I didn't know what to say. It said "Love will tear us apart" in large black letters across his neck. Both of them thought that was the correct spelling. Story 53. Not a tattoo artist, but the guy who got the 40-0 tat for the Kentucky Wildcats before the season even started probably really regrets that. They went 38-1. Story 54. The very worst tattoo I gave someone was during my apprenticeship. It was my second ever tattoo on a guy who worked at the shop too, and it was a Valentine special I drew up, a bow and arrow. I gave the poor guy ink poisoning and it took a month to heal. He teased me for it for a long while but was okay with it. Story 55. Tattoo apprentice here. Not me, but my boss. Had a guy come in who wants his whole and transformed in a dragon. Boss agrees to do it for a ridiculous price, like $1,000 for what would take 3 hours or so. Ends up tattooing him in the private room at our shop, but of course everyone in the shop is dying to know how he accomplished it. Basically, when you're tattooing, one hand is running the machine with the needle and the other is stretching the skin tight. But like, how do you stretch skin? Did he have the guy get it or what? Turns out he had the guy stretch it out himself. Like he spent 3 hours yanking his first one way, then the other, so my boss could tattoo the whole thing, then batwinging out his nuts. His original thought was for the guy to have a, but he couldn't keep it going while it was getting jabbed with a needle obviously. Now our shop refuses genital tattoos and that's why. Story 56. Late, but I've got one. Wonder if the artist is here. A few years ago, a friend in college got a large tattoo of her favorite cartoon character dressed in her chosen profession. It was really well done, but it was on her stomach, close to her belly button. She was so proud to show us, complained about how painful and expensive it was, but how it was worth it. She laughed when she said the artist tried to talk her into getting it somewhere, anywhere else. It came out of my mouth before I even thought it. Well, yeah, aren't you planning on having kids? She talked about having 2 or 3. She started to make a comment about women with tattoos being good mothers. Then her hand touched the tattoo and it seemed to click in. I wonder what Nurse Minnie Mouse looks like 6 years and a pregnancy later. Story 57. Not an artist, but I've seen this, and I can safely say this is pretty high on the worst tattoo ever list. NSFW Kakashi warning. Story 58. Not a tattoo artist, but once I was browsing pics in an artist's book in upstate New York and saw a snapshot of a tattoo of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man sticking his hand into a vagina with a bunch of dripping off his arm. Story 59. I saw a guy with a tattoo of a lawnmower on a bald spot on his head. Was hilarious and I didn't think to ask for a picture until later when it was too late. Think of all the repost karma somebody could have gotten from that. Not a tattoo artist, but I always thought it'd be fun to get my tattoo to look like the creature from the movie Alien. And since I'm uncircumcised, it could even have the whole secondary jaw thing going on. My wife told me absolutely haram when I brought it up though. Story 61. Of the youth leaders at my old church had the number 5 tattooed on the back of his left shoulder. It was his baseball number. He said that before becoming a Christian, he got really drunk and him and a friend decided to do something crazy. He got the tattoo, and the friend got a piercing. He said it was really unfortunate that his friend could take out the piercing the next morning, but he was stuck with his shame. All of us kids in the youth group would always slap the back of his shoulder and say high five. Story 61 I gave someone a thigh covering California in the Coca-Cola font. Also a really ugly heart on this girl's stomach that she googled like 5 minutes before just because I was doing it for free. Never impulse decide your ink ladies and gents.